Woke up this little moon and my diamonds came in from Elliot. Pearls on that fucking bitch's neck, she so elegant. Shop about the fucking mall, so much made me a resident. This Maybach got 4 windows, tinted on it, feel like the president. How I'm coming, I'm just standing this.
Hello, welcome back to the Crooked Hour. Today we're going to be breaking down the co-main event of UFC Paris, Robert Whittaker versus Marvin Vettori in the middleweight division, and finding out how to bet both ways on this fight, and we're just going to have a little chat about it. So as always, we're going to start with the tail of the tape. 24-6 for Robert Whittaker, 18-5 for Marvin Vettori, so Robert Whittaker has the more experience fighting. Average fight time for Robert Whittaker, 14.23, Marvin Vettori 16.34. Height, the exact same height. Reach, Marvin Vettori's got a 1-inch reach advantage, but it shouldn't matter too much, but it might give him a slight advantage in some exchanges, but I'll talk about that more later. Strikes landed per minute, 4.45 for Robert Whittaker, 4.35 for Marvin Vettori, and what you'll notice is a lot of these striking stats are very similar. They're very close, there's not a lot separating them, but when you watch their fights, there is a bit separating these two fighters, but I'll break that down later. Striking accuracy, 42% for Whittaker, 45% for Vettori. So while Robert Whittaker is landing more per minute, he's not as accurate, so he might be actually landing less, so that number comes closer together, but he is throwing more, which is important. Strikes absorbed per minute is higher for Marvin Vettori. He is eating the more shots, but with a chin like him and with a durability like his, you can eat those more shots. And the striking defense, they both got good striking defense. 60% for Robert Whittaker, 59% for Marvin Vettori. Takedown average, 0.81 for Robert Whittaker, 2.04 for Marvin Vettori. But Robert Whittaker's only been throwing takedowns recently. He never used to do them, and then in his fight against Gastelum and Israel Adesanya, he started going for takedowns more often, so that might even be a theme in this fight, but I doubt it. 83% takedown defense for Whittaker, 76% for Marvin Vettori. The reason I've circled Robert Whittaker's takedown defense blue is because I feel like this is important. I think Marvin Vettori will shoot for a takedown at one point in the fight, but will he get it? I don't think so. And 0.6 submission average for Marvin Vettori and 0.0 for Robert Whittaker. But Robert Whittaker is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, which I don't think is spoken about enough. So I wouldn't be surprised if he went for a takedown in this fight and changed that to 0.1. Overall, it's going to be a pretty back and forth fight, but I do have to say, straight off the bat, I have a hard time finding a way Marvin Vettori is going to win this. I have a hard time finding it, and that's not saying he is, but I just have a hard time. I've thought about this fight, thought about how it's going to play out multiple times, but I just don't see a way Marvin Vettori is going to outpoint Whittaker over the 3 rounds, and I don't see a way he's going to finish Whittaker. Whittaker's chin can be a bit shaky at times. You know, we've seen Israel knock him out and then drop him in the second fight. We've seen him hurt against Jared Cannonier. But I just think Robert overall is going to be too quick for him here. I think Robert's going to be too quick for him. His movement's good. He's very bouncy, springy off his feet, has very good movement around the cage. He's good a bit against pressure fighters. If you watch his fight against Derek Brunson, you'll see what I mean. Very good a bit against pressure fighters, doesn't wilt to the pressure, finds his openings, finds his strikes and moves out. And I think Vettori is going to be on the front foot this fight. I do think Vettori is going to be pressing the action forward, and I feel like Whittaker is going to be the one that's going to need to make this his fight. I feel like he's going to be bouncing out. He's going to have moments where he will be moving forward, but he's going to need to get that respect, and I do think he does get that respect. I think we're going to see a lot of clinch time in this fight as well. I think we're going to see a lot of times where Vettori has Whittaker up against the fence, maybe trying for a takedown, but not really doing anything. I see Robert Whittaker maybe even reversing some of those clinches or not long getting out of them, dropping some close-in elbows as we've seen him do against Derek Brunson, and he did it against Kelvin Gastelum as well. In the clinch, he throws a quick elbow. I can see him doing a few of those against Vettori. But honestly, I don't see Vettori shooting a lot of takedowns this fight. Robert Whittaker, 83% takedown defense, not an easy guy to get down. And once you do get him down, he's straight back to his feet. I see Marvin Vettori shooting a takedown now and then just to mix it up, just to pose a threat. But I see Whittaker not getting taken down. And I honestly do think if Vettori does come with a wrestle-heavy game plan, don't be surprised if we see a submission threat from Whittaker. I'm just going to say it now. Don't be surprised if we see a submission threat from Whittaker. Do I think he's going to get it on Vettori? Probably not. Vettori is a purple belt, I think. Robert Whittaker's a black belt. But Vettori's just strong, man. Vettori's strong. I think Vettori's a hard man to submit. But I don't be surprised if we see the threat of one, especially if Robert Whittaker does get on the ground on his back, or maybe even on top if Robert Whittaker manages to get on top somehow, which I don't doubt. You know, there's times where Robert Whittaker times his takedowns and he'll go for it, and sometimes he does get on top. You've seen it against Kelvin Gastelum. Didn't quite do it against Israel. Probably won't do it against Vettori, but it is a possibility. But the same thing, Vettori could get on top here, but I wouldn't be surprised if Robert Whittaker showed some submissions off his back and tried to get back to his feet. But once you're on the ground with Vettori, it's not the easiest. It's not so easy to get up. I mean, we've seen him do it to Kevin Holland over 5 rounds. Just grinded it out on the ground. But Robert Whittaker, off his back, I feel like he's a lot better than Kevin Holland. So I feel like the majority of this fight will be on the feet, but if it does get to the ground, I think it's going to be pretty even for both men. But one of them could steal around. If one of them gets the other to the ground, don't be surprised if they steal around. It'll be up to them in the next round or the remaining time to defend the takedowns and get back to their feet if it does happen again. But on the feet, I do believe Robert Whittaker will be leading the dance by speed, his footwork, and his diversity of strikes. Vettori does have a good boxing game and good kicks, but Robert Whittaker, he's got the faster hands, the more diverse kicking. I wouldn't be surprised if he really destroys the leg of Vettori in this fight and does some damage to that knee. So straight off, how do you bet on Robert Whittaker? Now, I've got 3.8 units on Robert Whittaker. I'm just going to say it now. Everything I said before is why. I feel like Robert Whittaker's going to get this one done. Similar to how he did it against Kelvin Gastelum. Pretty similar to that. I think Vettori does have slightly better stand-up than Kelvin Gastelum. Sorta in some ways. He's very straight with his punches. Kelvin Gastelum wings hooks and that sometimes. You know, it's a very similar kind of style of fighting. Good ground game from both of them. But I think Vettori's a bit more durable. You know, I think Vettori's going to want to brawl this. He's going to want to make this a brawl. And I feel like Whittaker's going to make this his fight. You know, finding his shots in the brawl and getting out. But Robert Whittaker moneyline / parlay piece is a good bet. I've got him in a parlay with Cyril Gane. If you're backing Cyril Gane, that's a very good bet. I'll be doing how to bet both ways on Cyril Gane versus Tai Tuivasa very soon. Robert Whittaker, he could get it done multiple ways. Doubt he knocks out Marvin Vettori. You know, I said the submission is a chance, but he's way more likely to get the decision over Vettori than the submission. Marvin Vettori's never been finished. All his 5 losses are by decision. Wouldn't be surprised if this is his 6th loss by decision. My recording just cut out, but as I was saying, Vettori's never been finished. So I don't think Robert Whittaker's gonna finish him, but it's always a chance. So Robert Whittaker by points just because of the durability of Vettori, and as well because Robert Whittaker doesn't get finishes too often. He usually only get finishes on people who leave their chin out or available to just get hit and don't have a decent chin. And Vettori's the definition of a decent chin. That man's got an iron chin. So Robert Whittaker by points or Robert Whittaker moneyline or parlay piece. We're moving on to the Italian dream, Marvin Vettori. So Marvin Vettori moneyline. I know it's such like a cop out because it's like, well, duh, we can just pick the moneyline. Like, what the fuck? But when there's an underdog and there's multiple ways for the underdog to win, it just makes sense to go moneyline. Like, makes sense. 2.82. I reckon that line's going to grow further apart too. I feel like as the fight gets closer, people are going to ask the same question I'm asking about. How is Marvin Vettori going to win this fight? And it's hard to answer that question. Like, wrestle? Whittaker's equally as good of a grappler. What is he going to out-brawl him? Whittaker's faster, and he doesn't really ever get out broad in brawling matches. Like, I mean, the guy went 10 rounds with Yoel Romero. I mean, it's just... and won after getting dropped. And do I think Marvin Vettori has the power to drop Whittaker? If Whittaker somehow doesn't have a good defense as he usually does, maybe he can get dropped. But, you know, that's not a big chance. Like, that's really unlikely to happen. So I feel like the obvious thing is Marvin Vettori Moneyline or Marvin Vettori by points. I keep going to say Marlon Vera for some reason. But yeah, the exact same as pretty much what I had for Whittaker, with Whittaker Moneyline parlay piece, Robert Whittaker by points. But the only difference is I wouldn't put Marvin Vettori in a parlay because, you know, you're being risky when you put an underdog in a parlay, you know what I'm saying? So Marvin Vettori by points, I feel like he might. I don't feel like he might, because I've got Whittaker. But trying to be unbiased, if he wins, if I do envision a way of him winning, it's somehow he gets the wrestling off, somehow gets the brawling off, and manages to outpoint Robert Whittaker, maybe 2 rounds to 1, maybe split decision, something like that. Or maybe he submits Robert Whittaker, but... you know, this is MMA. After this weekend, Usman get knocked out, I wouldn't doubt anything. So, if you're on Vettori, you know why you're on Vettori. But this is my advice. Go points or money line, because Whittaker's a hard guy to finish unless you're Israel Adesanya. But even Israel Adesanya couldn't do it in the second fight and arguably lost the second fight. So, I mean... maybe Marvin Vettori can give him problems on the ground. We'll have to see. But Marvin Vettori couldn't finish Kevin Holland on the ground. So, yeah, we carry on. If we want to bet on this fight overall, we're going fight goes to the decision because of everything I've said. Both of these guys are primarily decision fighters. They like to go to the decision. Doesn't mean that they fight for a decision. I feel like both of them try to get finishes, but they're just unable to. And on each other, I think they're going to be unable to for the most part. So fight does not go to the decision. I mean, fight to go to decision is a nice thing to add to your parlay, maybe, or just put a unit on it. My camera just cut out again. This is hell, and I apologize. But what I was saying is, yeah, I feel like this is a safe bet. If you want to be even safer, maybe go over 2.5 rounds, but I honestly think they'll be paying 1.20 or even less. So I wouldn't even touch that for that price. I'd just go fight to go to decision is a likely bet and something that I would want to play. So yeah, that's been this episode. Overall, I really think Whittaker's going to do it. But if you're on Vettori, you know, I'm not saying anything bad. If you're on Vettori, fair enough. You might see something I don't see. But you might see something I haven't seen. Of course, I haven't been going the best late of the bet, so don't always listen to me. But I'm here to give you how to bet both ways. If you want to bet on Vettori, go by decision. It's your smartest, safest bet. But again, maybe you see something I don't. Anyway, thank you all for listening. And as always, have a good one.